Awesome, people. So thank you everybody who's popping in. We still have people that are joining the meeting. This is our monthly wealth and leadership call. And today we have the honor and the privilege of having someone that you guys might have heard of. He's going to be talking to us about the Latin American movement, as well as some of the other countries that have just recently been added. So we're going to give it just 1 minute so that we can have all the people kind of settle in. We have some people connecting their audio and whatnot. But I would like to ask a question before we get started into the whole scenario. Michael, I was thinking about this morning, and I don't think this question has ever been asked. We're always talking about EXP. We're always talking about the growth, but I don't think we've ever really learned a lot about you. So I would love for you to give us a little bit of your story. Like where did the Michael Valdes journey begin? You know, from infancy, if you will. And then how'd you get here? I would love to hear that story before we get into some of the other nitty gritty.
Wow, we only have half an hour though. So first of all, I'll give you a very quick version. So I am, first of all, I'm so honored to be here with you and everyone that is a part of this call today. Thank you for the opportunity to always chat with you, and thank you for your leadership and everyone that's on this call that is so important with the story that we're building. But I'm born and raised in New York City. My dad was Cuban. My mom was born in Madrid. And my dad had a political history in Cuba. He was part of Batista's cabinet. And when Castro came in, he was arrested as a political prisoner. He was released during the Bay of Pigs at a prisoner exchange program, all before I was born, but it was certainly something that shaped me, where we were raised with a great understanding that, you know, tomorrow's never promised and you live today. And that is sort of has been the mantra that has led me throughout a lot of my life. I actually went to school here in New York, and then I really got into the finance world, and I was with Deutsche Bank for 10 years. I was the first Latino director of Deutsche Bank in the United States at the age of 25, which was 30 years ago, actually. And so it was a great sort of experience there. It was a great journey. And then I got into real estate by a fluke. And it was, I had gotten my license because I was starting to purchase a lot of real estate, and it was for my own portfolio. So I got my license for my own portfolio and just to transact my own properties. And so I did that back in 2003 through 2005, give or take. And in 2005, I met the person who bought the first franchise for Sotheby's in the United States and happened to be in Miami. And his name was Carlos Justo, another Latino. And he had actually purchased the first franchise, and he bought the franchise for South Florida, for Puerto Rico, and for Turks and Caicos. And so long story short, he actually had the first reality show of real estate on television back in 2004 on TLC. And so I met him and was sort of intrigued with what he was doing. And I actually came in to run the business because I didn't realize how he was actually doing any business. And so he had a team of 8 people, probably doing about $300 million of production back then. So this is back in 2005 in Miami. And so I came in and I was able to raise that to $500,000 with a team of 8 people. We had, this was pre-crisis, obviously, but we had a focus on the luxury market. Our average sales price was $7 million. When I came in, probably about a year into it, I decided that, you know, it was making a lot of other people wealthy. And so I wanted to sort of jump into the game, and I created my own team. And my team actually was ranked in the top 1% of the state of Florida that year. And we continued on with it. I remember my very first sale was $6.4 million. It was the penthouse of the Fontainebleau. And my second sale was $12.8 million, which was the largest home on Fisher Island. And so that sort of started it. And I think it was the idea that because I came from banking, I was comfortable in that sort of world. And I really just went in and started looking at real estate as just something that should be in your portfolio. And that was the conversations that I was having. And it was a very interesting thing. I just went back to all of my banking clients. And then, you know, I had a really successful career in the field. And then in 2010, I actually moved over to the corporate side. And so I moved to Europe. I moved to London to run the European network for Sotheby's. And then I did that for quite some time. I was then asked to run all of the international presence for Sotheby's and was responsible for opening 70 countries for them. And then after that, Realty asked me to run all the brands. So when I left Realty, I was a senior vice president of Realty, running all international for all 6 brands that Realty had, which was Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, Better Homes and Garden, and Corcoran. And then I met Glenn a year and a half ago, and the rest is history.
So, I mean, I have to ask, because everybody asks this question, Michael, and that's pretty impressive, like your story. Great to hear your journey, right? One door opens the other. How is it that, what was the thing, you know, the thing that was said, the thought that really encouraged you to come on over to EXP? Because, you know, you had a very, very, very successful career, and kind of like reaching the top of the top of the top, you know, I mean, anybody would say. What was it that made you come on over?
You know, it was my accountant, who I've known for 30 years, who went to school together, said to me, "You're crazy to leave." And so he says, "You're number 3 at the largest real estate company in the world. Why would you leave?" And so the answer was the people here. And I met Glenn, I met Jason, I met Jeff Whiteside. And it was funny, we were in Inman almost 2 years ago at this point. And we sat down together for what was supposed to be a 20-minute meeting. And it ended up being 2.5 hours. And we were all really just playing. We were creating, what would an EXP Global look like? And the moment that I understood, because you have to remember, I spent 15 years at a very traditional real estate brokerage environment. And so the moment that I understood that the agent became the brand without paying a franchise fee, without paying a marketing fee, and it was just sort of like, there was absolutely, it was limitless. And I loved the challenge of what this was. And the more I understood what this model was, the more I was in it. You know, it was funny because the first week that I joined EXP was the virtual shareholders meeting. And it was my very first week here. It was, I joined in May of 2020. And that second week in May was the shareholders event. And so I remember Jason saying to me, you know, "I don't expect you to prepare anything, you know, but we'll just introduce you." And I said, "I'm happy to do a presentation and my vision of what we're doing." And so what was funny was that I did like a 20-minute slot. And so at the end of that, I had 17,000 of my closest friends, right? Everybody was really reaching out. And it was such a sense of community and family. And I've said this before, I have spent 15 years, if you count the time that I was a broker as well. So 15 years at Realty, and 6 brands, 300,000 agents, 113 countries collectively. Never once, hand to God, did I ever hear anyone in all that time say that Realty changed my life. Never once. I heard that the first week that I was here. I heard that at shareholders. And at first I'm like, I'm born and raised in New York, and I'm not, you know, it's sort of like, there's not a lot of trust here, right? And so it's just the way that I was raised. And it was just sort of like, oh my God, I made the biggest mistake. What is this Kool-Aid everyone is drinking? And so it was my first knee-jerk reaction. And then once I actually understood what this was and saw it for myself, the way that it actually does change people's lives, the way that it actually does create something. I've said this so many times, this is so much larger than us, right? I see my brother Leo here, and Leo has been an amazing leader in our community and in this organization. And Leo has a heart of gold where he leads by the idea that this helps somebody else. And that's how we've succeeded. Rosie, you've been the most amazing leader at this as well. And everyone leads from the heart. And that's a huge difference here. And that's why we are the largest independent real estate company in the industry. That's why we're at 75,000 agents. That's why when we actually sort of go and open a place like Mexico that understands that it's about community, we're at almost 900 agents in a little over a year. When you start sort of looking at things like India, we're at 1,300 agents in the same period of time. That doesn't happen anywhere else.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, the story about, everything that you did prior, and then how getting to EXP actually changed your shit. Like, I feel like it shifted something inside of you as well, where this seemed like a great opportunity.
1,000,000%.
Fell in love with the people and then saw, the difference, if you will.
1,000,000%. When we start talking about this is way bigger than any of us. I always sort of say that EXP is a gift, right? Everyone who's on this call, we have been the recipients of a gift. And I always say that when we actually think of it as we are just sharing a gift with somebody else, you'll never recruit a day in your life. You're just sharing the gift that you've received and sharing that gift with another human being.
That it couldn't be said any better. Thank you so much, Michael. I mean, I think that one of the things that I found really incredible when I was thinking about when you came on board, I remember that first week you sent a message, said, "Hey, just want to connect. I'm the new kid, right? Like, let's chat sometime." I felt like, wow, that was pretty impressive for someone to actually reach out. I've never in my career, 25 years, had anyone, from the top, just kind of say, "Hey, we're part of the same team." So ever since that happened, and just seeing how you've moved like a stealth, bomber, airplane or whatever that is, I want to try to understand. I want people here to understand this vision that you have, right? You came on board, you cast a vision. I'm sure that vision has grown as you've been here, but share with us what you saw back then and where are we now and where are we going in terms of the global environment and the opportunity for us, of course.
That's actually a great question. I gotta explain what that was first. So when I first got here, I asked for I spent 4 months in due diligence before I jumped over. And so, when it was always understanding what the EXP model was. And I said to myself, this is just too good to be true. It doesn't make sense to me. Right. And so I actually, because I came from banking, I pulled every SEC filing and read it before I actually came in. And I was trying to sort of find, it's sort of like, what's the hole in this thing? And I was trying to find the hole to make myself right. Right. And so it was just sort of like, what is going on? It doesn't make sense to me. It's too good. And so then I actually asked to call every board member because I wanted to speak to them separately. And everyone at every point, everyone was sort of like, sure, you can do whatever you want. Sure. And then I actually, when I came over, said, I'm going to speak to the top 40 people in the company. And I actually reached out to you, Rosie, and every one of your other colleagues, because I was the one coming in. This was your house that you built. And so I looked at it as though I wanted to expand the house, but you were here before me. And so it's your house. And I wanted it to expand it together. And so that was always the vision that I had, was that I had at that point when I came in, I think we were at 34,000 agents. So this is in less than 2 years. And when I came in, I said, these 30,000 plus people are the ones that are the best ambassadors to anything we're going to be doing. And so when we sit and have this conversation, who better than sort of doing it with them? And it's the idea of creating this vision. And you guys are the ambassadors. I see so many names on here of people that I've spoken to. And they're like, what about this country? And what about this, right? And we start having these discussions and these conversations. And so when I look at this as we are creating a global brand around the world, right? And so you want to think of it as though it would be like a shopping center. You want your anchor tenants, right? And so that means the larger countries. So countries like Brazil, like Mexico, like India, that establishes us. These are countries that have millions of people. In the case of India, 1.3 billion people. And it's sort of like those people start talking about what an EXP is. Then we start going into that second tier of countries that will start feeding those countries we're already in. So now, right now, we just opened country number 19, which was the Dominican Republic. Country number 20 will be Greece in a couple of weeks. And as we continue to create this, we're starting to now shift into a regional focus. So our EMEA region, for example, it's Europe, Middle East, India, and Africa. We have a wonderful leader named Lauria Profumi, who is my EMEA director. She now has all of the different country heads in those 4 regions reporting into her. So what we're doing is creating more regional focus. We have a regional marketing director now for that region. And so what that happens is that then there's more of a focused energy in a region that allows you to sort of grow organically with it. So if we start looking at Europe as an example, we're now in all of continental Europe. So now we'll probably start looking into Eastern Europe, and we'll start looking into where footholds would be there. So what would make sense would be something with a large landmass like a Russia or something like that, to be able to anchor our brand in what would then be Eastern Europe. Same thing to look at when we'll duplicate those efforts on APAC, which was Asia Pacific, and then obviously the CALA region, which is Caribbean, Latin America, including South America.
Wow. You know, I mean, just the way that you explain that, I know I've kind of like have friends in different countries and I've kind of thrown names at you in the past, but you know, our growth, some people would say is like, wow, it's incredible, it's not sustainable. But just hearing how you have, it's very strategic, right? It's very strategic. And I mean, what I'm getting from that growth, our growth is built on strength, right? And then
100%.
Down into the smaller, you know, the smaller regions, smaller continents, right?
Think of it as building that foundation as you would a home, right? You need a strong foundation to build that home. You need a strong foundation to build the brand on a global scale, because we don't have, as a lot of our competition does, they're all franchises. Every single franchise charges a marketing fee. We don't do that. We actually put the money back in the pockets of the agents, right? So every bit of our growth, and think about this, every bit of our growth has been organic. We've never done an acquisition, right? We haven't bought another company. We've never done an acquisition for agent count. The agent count has all been organic. The 20 countries that we'll soon be in a couple of weeks has all been organic, which means we build from scratch. So we go in and we have very, very high fixed costs into any country that we go into, right? So I'm going to go and open Brazil before I open Belize, right? Because Belize has maybe 200 agents in the island. You know, Brazil has 500,000 agents. So I'm going to, and my cost would be exactly the same. So because we have to start from scratch. So we have to go and build a corporation. We have to go and build our legal structure. We have to go and get all of our finance, our accounting, our banking, our legal, find the leader, find the people that will be around that leader. And so every single thing that we do has a very fixed cost to it.
Wow, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't think I've ever asked a question, and I really appreciate that you explain that to us for some of us that need to get that understanding, right? So Michael, you know, I don't want to ask what we're doing in the next year or two. I'm going to ask 2 more questions. I know your time is limited. We have 6 more minutes. If you guys have a question, please put it in the chat box. But the 2 questions that I'm going to ask you is, you know, one, what does 5 years from now look like, right? In your mind, you know, what's possible? You know, what else is possible in the next 5 years? And then second, just to bring it down to grassroots, because I'm sure this is one of the questions that people have, is what is the best way or the best channel to kind of get connected with, let's say somebody in here is from, Brazil or from Greece, what is the best path, to connect and to really expand, this network that we now have the opportunity to do, which I think, by the way, I just have to throw this out there. For me to be able to refer a client to Spain through my chat is incredible, right? We really
love it.
real estate to like from big to little, right? From global to like hyper local in a really unique way. So,
and you know what? It's sort of like I'll answer that in two ways, but I want to sort of like, because I keep seeing Leo on the side of my screen here, and there's a great story with Spain, because with Leo called me up and he says, I have somebody in Spain who's very influential, but he's not in the industry. Would you be open to having a discussion? And so, it's sort of like Leo can be convincing. So we had a great call. The guy was amazing. And right now he came in, but he did it the right way. He wasn't from the real estate sector, but he hired the real estate expertise within his group. He now has 1/3 of the agent count that we have in Spain under this one line with this individual. So that's what I'm talking about with collaboration as well. So, it's a two-way street as how we're building this. So that was a really great story with that. But your two questions are 5-year plan. We certainly announced at EXPCon, which was 500,000 agents globally, and we would be in 50 countries around the world. And so that is something that for us, as we start looking at this, we have never, ever not had at least 50% growth year over year. If you do a 50% growth year over year, it actually gets us to that number on a 5-year trajectory. So it's not as though we're just sort of like picking a number just to pick a number. It is something where our growth is something that is very, very strong. So the second part of that is, how do you reach out? We have a lot of different resources. The first one is expglobal.partners, and that is the global site that allows you to pre-register for any countries that we've already announced. So if you have somebody that you really want to start getting involved with EXP, so that would, at this point, would be Greece and New Zealand, 2 countries already announced. So if you had anybody there, we would start getting them into EXP world. We would start getting guest passes to them. We would start letting them know when the webinar would be happening, things of that nature. The other thing is that there is an interactive map in that same website. So expglobal.partners. And there you can toggle over any country that we're in. It will take you to the landing page of that country. When you're there, the model is, because by the way, we have a different model in every country, because what we do is that we study the market in every single country. And so we want to be a local player with a global reach. So we want to be able to have the adaptation of our model in every single country to be able to then be competitive in that market. So we have all of the models in native language and in English once you get to that landing page. And then the second thing that I would ask you to do is to go to Workplace, and there is international conversations. Pin that in your Workplace chat. That has now over 3,000 members. We have at the top of that conversation a pinned dot, which is the contact information for all the leaders in all the countries. So that's your little cheat sheet for reaching anybody you want to reach on a leadership globally in the 19 countries that we're in. And the third thing that I would let you know is that in EXP world, if you go to the go-to menu and you go to global operations, there is a drop-down menu, and every single country that we're in has their own EXP world. Now, it will be in native language, but they have their own EXP world. And when you get there, the first thing that it drops you into is a self-help room. And there you can have probably 90% of your questions answered. And if not, you can have a ticket right there that'll get you to the broker.
Wow. So I could literally be speaking to the broker of Greece like next week or something, a couple weeks, right?
The broker has just been hired. We already announced him at the global meeting. I think it was last week. The model is being built right now, and we should be able to, I think it's going to be on the 17th of March where we're going to have the webinar, and then we'll be launching the week after that.
Awesome.
So right around the corner.
I mean, I think that blows my mind. I mean, just like the you know, the background picture that you have is how we are really connecting all the dots globally. And you know, prior to EXP, my thinking was very limited. I'm in my town and I'm thinking about growing my business in my town. Never did I think of, like, you know, across the state, across states, across the world. So
That's it.
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And yeah, kudos to Leo for staying, because, you know, that team is rocking and rolling. Something else that I do want to add, and I mean, this might not be something that kind of on the forefront is there. It's just how important it is to maintain that connection and that community with the people that, you know, you do refer into other countries, because you are the lifeline to the company. You are that
So
connection.
true.
Right. So I know you have to go, Michael. I'm sure we have
I do.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Yeah. For those of you guys that would like to stay on, I do have some information for you guys, just in terms of how you guys can, you know, connect with other countries. What I wanted to share, and Leo, if you'd like to kind of come on the screen really quickly, just to kind of share your experience, because you did pretty much launch that Spanish group. And what are some of the, like, one or two things that have been the most important, you know, the most important things that you've observed, you know, from that connection and that relationship? Let's see, are we able to unmute you? Megan, did we unmute Leo? Are you there, Miss?
Yes, should be working.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity. So basically, things that I've learned is just like you mentioned here at the end, is staying in connection with them, right? So what I've done is I've taken leadership and done like a weekly call with them, because we have a pretty large group. I think almost 190 agents in Spain. So it's just kind of keeping them engaged and activated and everything else. And they're plugging in, obviously, to all the stuff that's going on in the EXP world. But something like this, right? Like you're doing it right now. You're taking on leadership, and then you're doing a call for all of us to collaborate and synergize. So I think that that's one of the things that I've incorporated myself. I'm doing a weekly call on Fridays and just getting everybody inspired and motivated, and just focusing on stuff that, you know, we know here in California or wherever we're at in the US, it's like a lot of it's like, you know, when we teach it in other places, they're like, oh my God, that's like amazing, right? And I definitely do think that our markets are pretty intense here. So there's stuff that we could share here from our perspective that could make a big impact there. So just, you know, building a community, staying in a close connection with the leaders, and making sure that they are getting what they originally intended to get when they moved.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, guys. We live in, like, the hottest market. We're in LA, right? LA, New York, you know, Miami, you know, hot markets, all the technology, everything that's new is new here first. And so a lot of these other countries, people, you know, they're not up to speed on just some of the things that you guys take for granted. You know, simple strategies, you know, scripting, simple technology, you know, how to set up a Facebook page, like simple things. And so even if you feel like you might not really be able to support, you can always connect them to your support line, right? And to, you know, the bigger corporation. So awesome. I wanted to thank you so much, Leo, for that share. I want to thank you guys for being here. Next month, we have something that's a little bit different. We're going to have a mindset, a very, very powerful coach who has coached over probably 100,000 people in his time. And so he's going to be on next month to really, you know, shift us like right past the first quarter into the second quarter. So I invite you guys to be here. It will be on the 22nd-ish of each month. By the way, happy Rev Share Day, right? Today is 2/22/22. Kind of a symbolic number. It's so cool. It's so exciting. But on the 22nd of every month, we get that thank you and that participation from the company, whether it's like $100 or like Leo, hit past, he just had 1,000 agents, I think, that he just hit. And so obviously those numbers are growing. So just want to thank everybody for your participation. I look forward to seeing you guys next month. And onward and upward. Thanks so much. Bye.